Hey there, and welcome. So today, we're going to be architects for a day. We're grabbing our hard hats and digging into the very blueprints of education. We'll be looking at some brilliant and, let's be honest, sometimes totally clashing ideas from the philosophers who basically designed the schools we all know. All right, let's get into it.
It seems like such a simple question, doesn't it? But people have been arguing about the answer for centuries. Is school supposed to help you fit into the world as it is, or is it meant to give you the tools to build a brand new one? This one question is really at the heart of everything we're about to unpack.
And that question really creates two major camps in this whole debate. You've got one group of thinkers who say education's #1 job is to keep society stable and running smoothly. But on the other side, you've got people who see school as the most powerful engine we have for radical, world-altering change. So let's meet the architects from that first camp.
Okay, so these are the thinkers who argue that schools should prepare you to be a responsible, productive citizen inside the world we already have. Their whole focus is on things like stability, reason, and just being practical.
First up, we've got the English philosopher John Locke. And wow, did he lay some serious groundwork. He had this simple but incredibly powerful idea that completely changed how we think about the mind and how we learn.
Locke's huge idea was tabula rasa, which is just Latin for blank slate. Picture this. Your mind, when you're born, is like a brand new computer with zero software installed. It's empty. Everything you eventually learn, every single skill you pick up, gets written onto that slate through your experiences. So for Locke, the goal of education is to be the programmer, carefully installing the software of reason and morality.
So, if you're going to remember one thing about Locke, remember this. We start as a blank slate, and our mind gets filled up entirely by our experiences. It might sound simple to us now, but it was a revolutionary idea back then, and it really became a cornerstone for how we think about learning. All right, let's move on to our next architect, Herbert Spencer. Spencer looked at the whole education system and basically asked one simple question. Yeah, but what's it for?
Spencer was all about usefulness. He argued, why are we wasting time on subjects that have no practical application in the real world? For him, a good education gives you job skills, helps you run a home, makes you a contributor to the economy. You know, if you've ever heard someone push for more STEM classes or vocational training, you are hearing a direct echo of Spencer's philosophy.
So the key takeaway for Spencer is just simple utility. In his world, if a subject isn't practical and directly useful for society and the economy, it's just not worth our time. It's education with a very clear, very functional purpose.
Now, our final thinker in this first camp is John Dewey. Dewey's really interesting because he's kind of like a bridge. He agrees that we should prepare students for society, but he has a totally different idea about how we should do it.
Dewey was the champion of what's called progressive learning. He was convinced that we learn best by doing. Forget just sitting there memorizing facts. Dewey wanted kids to be conducting experiments, building things, solving actual problems. The whole point was to connect what happens in the classroom directly to a student's real life and the needs of their community.
So for Dewey, the key thing is that learning is not a passive sport. It's got to be an active, hands-on process that's deeply connected to the real, lived experiences of students and the world right outside the school doors.
Okay, let's cross the aisle now and check out the other side of this debate. These are the revolutionaries, the thinkers who didn't just want to get students ready for society. They wanted to give them the tools to tear it down and build it back up, better.
And leading this charge is George Counts. He was looking at the huge problems of his day, like the Great Depression, and he asked this incredibly bold question. Dare the school build a new social order?
And for Counts, the answer was a loud and clear yes. He believed teachers had a civic duty that went way beyond just teaching math or history. He thought they should be actively shaping a more just, more equitable society. In his view, education shouldn't be neutral. It has to pick a side, and that side is social reform.
So when you think of George Counts, just remember his mission. Use the classroom as a literal tool for civic reform, to actively build a new, better social order right from the ground up.
Building right on top of what Counts started, we have Theodore Bramwell. He took this idea of a reform-minded school and gave it a name, social reconstructionism.
Bramwell argued that the entire curriculum should be organized around society's biggest, ugliest problems, things like poverty, war, racism, you name it. The point of school wasn't just to learn about these issues, but to actively start working on how to solve them, creating a generation of students with a deep sense of social responsibility.
The key for Bramold is right there in the name: reconstructing society. His blueprint was to basically organize all of education around fixing our biggest problems and raising a generation that's totally aware of their power to make change happen.
And our final philosopher is the incredibly influential Brazilian educator Paulo Freire. He really zeroed in on the power dynamics happening inside the classroom itself.
So Freire argued that traditional education was basically a tool of oppression. You have teachers who deposit information into the heads of passive students. Instead, he proposed something called critical pedagogy, where education is a dialogue, a conversation. The goal is to empower learners, especially marginalized ones, to question everything, to challenge inequality, and ultimately to transform their own world.
So for Freire, the one word to remember is liberation. He saw education as the ultimate tool for empowering the oppressed, not by giving them answers, but by pulling them into a dialogue and helping them develop the critical thinking they need to change their own reality.
Okay, that was a lot. We've met all 6 of our architects. So to make sense of it all, let's put them side by side on a scorecard and see how their blueprints really stack up against each other.
And what's so fascinating when you see it like this is how clear the divide is. You look at those first 3 rows, Locke, Spencer, and Dewey. What are their goals? Develop reasoning, teach practical skills, connect to real life. It's all about preparing people to function within the society we already have. But then you look at the bottom 3, Counts, Bramold, and Freire. Their goals are to build a just society, fix our biggest problems, and empower the oppressed. They don't just want you to connect to society, they want you to fundamentally change it.
So, why should you care about a debate between a bunch of long-dead philosophers? Well, because their ideas aren't just stuck in old books. They are the invisible architecture of the real-world institutions that shape our schools right now, today.
Just think about the economic purpose of school. When we talk about job training, career readiness, developing practical skills for the workforce, that is pure Herbert Spencer. It's his utilitarian philosophy in action. It's all about making sure education serves the needs of the economy.
And what about the government's role in all this? This is where you see that tension play out perfectly. On one hand, the government sets standards and policies to keep things orderly, right? That's Camp 1 thinking. But on the other hand, it also creates programs to fight inequality and promote social justice, which is straight out of the playbook of Counts, Bramold, and Freire. It is a constant tug of war.
So, I'll just leave you with this final thought. Think back on your own time in school. The classes you took, the projects you worked on, what your teachers really emphasized. Was it all designed to help you fit nicely into the world? Or was it meant to empower you to go out and change it? Because make no mistake, your education was built on one of these blueprints. The only question is, can you tell which one it was?